I want to go to Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who's a Democrat from Texas, serves on the Oversight Committee, and she joins us now. What a weird day in the institution in which you serve. One of the first sort of gavelled in days by the new Speaker of the House. What did you make of what happened today?
You know, it was just more political theater. I don't think anyone was surprised, not anyone that actually serves in this body. The idea that we had a motion to expel George Santos earlier this year, it was brought by myself and other freshman Democrats, and they didn't want to deal with it at that point in time. And now they know, especially with those New York Republicans deciding to vote for this current Speaker, MAGA Mike, they know that we are going to tie them to MAGA Mike. And so they are trying to give them some cover. So it's nothing more than games. For all the people that were concerned about the fact that the House was closed, and I kept saying, you know what, when we're in session, all we're doing is running in place. We're not getting anything done anyway. And that's exactly where we are. We're running in place.
Yeah, Dan Goldman, who's also in the same freshman class as you are, if I'm not mistaken, who was part of those folks that first introduced this expulsion. He spoke today. In fact, it was sort of interesting. He asked for time from Santos during George Santos has a lot of time. George Santos gave him the time, and that was interesting. He said, hey, I'll let anyone speak. This is what Dan Goldman had to say. Take a listen.
George Santos hangs like an albatross around the necks of every single Republican from New York. They don't care anymore today about integrity or morality or the reputation of this institution than they did in May when they voted to protect Mr. Santos. They just care about their re-election in 1 year.
So if that's the case, so this was a cover vote, which I think is now crystal clear, right? The bigger question becomes what your sense is, and you're relatively new to this institution, but you've got serious stuff you got to do. There's a clock ticking on a continuing resolution to keep the government funded. There's a proposal from the White House of aid to both Israel and Ukraine. There are other pending pieces of important legislation. Like, what is your confidence level 48 hours into the speakership of Mike Johnson about that all getting done?
I think he's in over his head, in short. You know, the president sent over a package in which the Senate said that they could absolutely support. And what did he decide to do? He decided to MAGA the package up. He decided to tear it apart. That's the only thing that they know how to do. I will tell you, they are very good at tearing things apart. They are not good at keeping things together. And so the idea that he wanted to bring up this package, a package that I was of the impression we were supposed to vote on tomorrow, that has been pushed back. So at least it sounds like he knows how to count maybe a little bit better than some of the others. It sounds like he may not have the votes. This did not make sense. You can't say that we are the party of fiscal responsibility and conservatism and then offer up an aid package that, number one, does not support Ukraine, number two, does not support the Palestinian people. What type of message are we sending? When we look at the anti-Semitism, when we look at the Islamophobia in this country, it is being perpetuated by the MAGAs, and they are continuing to make sure that there is a wedge that exists in this country. And so there's no way we can come up with a package that supports Israel and then completely neglect the Palestinians who are stuck right now where they are. It is absolutely inhumane, and it will never fly, in addition to spitting in the faces of those people that work every single day to make sure that they are collecting taxes, especially from tax cheats such as a Trumper, to make sure that we get the money that we're entitled to in this country, to make sure that we can keep it going.
Yeah, that provision, just for folks that were not familiar, a few things got stripped out. The aid to Ukraine completely divided off, but there's also humanitarian funding for Palestinians in Gaza that's part of the consensus aid package coming to the White House that the Republican leadership attempted to strip out. Can I ask you? I'm going to ask you one last question. It's a principled question, because as I heard George Santos defend himself today, I actually found myself saying, like, I don't know, yeah, expulsion's a high bar and the guy's been indicted but not tried. Maybe he's got a point that that's not the kind of thing that should happen until, I think, you know, resigning is one thing, right? You take it upon yourself, but to actually be formally expelled. This is what he had to say about his presumption of innocence and the victory for due process today. Take a listen.
I have a right of the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. I'm fighting for that right. And if these guys don't believe in that, then democracy's dead. I came into this world alone. If I'm going to go out of here, I came into this body alone, I'll go out alone.
I came into this world alone. I came into this body alone. I'll go out alone. This is sort of bleak stuff, but what do you think about the argument he's making?
As somebody who's practiced law, you know, when it comes to a criminal courthouse, there's one standard. When it comes to serving in the people's house, there's a different standard. And, you know, obviously today, the members of the House decided that they weren't going to kick him out. This would not necessarily disrupt his right to have a jury trial, his right to be presumed innocent whatsoever. But I think that there is a lower bar. It's just like when we look at a civil case, there is a lower bar. It's preponderance, by the preponderance of the evidence. I think that there is a lower bar because there are only 435 of us that serve in this body. That means that we are in a select group of people, and we have to have the highest standards. I know it may not seem like it sometimes when you look at the likes of a Bovard or a Marjorie Taylor Greene. I get it, right? But technically, like when we look at the history of this organization, it should not be one that is full of George Santos's. And honestly, you know, I knew that this would never pass. We always knew that it would never pass. But it was important to go ahead and bring out the distinction because as we listen to them talk about the Biden crime family and there's no evidence of anything, I mean, let's talk about pot calling kettle black. I mean, what we see is a party that is full of hypocrisy, that is full of all the con artists, the frauds that you can find, and they don't want to do anything about that. But find somebody that you literally have nothing on, then we end up with scandals like Obama and his tan suit. We end up with nonsense. And it's time out for that. So this was a real test for them. So we'll see how they act going forward on their morality.
Yeah, we'll see what the Ethics Committee has to say as well, which may move this forward or put some urgency into it. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of the great state of Texas. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.